In the world of New Zealand rugby, legends are often forged in high schools and academy pathways, where the next great All Black is spotted before he even finishes puberty. But Nehe Milner-Skudder's story didn't follow the traditional script. Born in 1990 in Palmerston North, Nehe wasn't the name on everyone's lips during his teenage years. He wasn't the headline-stealing prodigy or the next golden boy tipped for greatness. In fact, his journey to the black jersey would be defined not by early stardom, but by grit, patience, and a late-blooming brilliance that would take the rugby world by storm. It wasn't until he found his way to the Hurricanes in Super Rugby that things started to shift. Almost overnight, it felt like Milner-Skudder went from unknown to unstoppable. His agility, footwork, and vision lit up the field. Fans were glued to the screen every time he touched the ball. He didn't just play rugby, he danced through it. And in 2015, the world would finally catch up to what New Zealanders were beginning to see. The 2015 Super Rugby season was Milner-Skudder's stage, and he performed like a man possessed. His sidestep, lethal, lightning fast, and almost disrespectful, became an instant trademark. Commentators compared him to Benji Marshall. Opponents dreaded being left behind in his wake. His balance between speed, spatial awareness, and deception made him a nightmare to defend against. There were no wasted movements. Every time he had the ball, something magical felt imminent. That year, his electric performances earned him a spot in the most coveted team in the sport, the All Blacks. It was a surreal ascension. Just months after establishing himself in Super Rugby, Nehe was suiting up in the black jersey, ready to step into the international arena. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The 2015 Rugby World Cup loomed, and the All Blacks were preparing to defend their title. And as fate would have it, Milner-Skudder wasn't just going to be a part of that team. He was about to be one of its shining stars. Wearing the number 14 jersey, Milner-Skudder entered the 2015 Rugby World Cup with little international experience, but you wouldn't have known it watching him play. In a tournament filled with pressure, intensity, and global attention, Nehe played with a calmness that belied his age. He wasn't rattled, he was radiant. Scoring 6 tries throughout the tournament, his every move was a highlight reel. His try in the final against Australia was more than just points on the board. It was a momentum shifter, helping New Zealand reclaim control of the match and ultimately win the final 34-17. By the end of the tournament, he was named the World Rugby Breakthrough Player of the Year. At just 24 years old, he had reached the pinnacle, a World Cup winner, a global sensation, and a fan favorite across every hemisphere. The future looked limitless. His unique style, humble demeanor, and sky-high ceiling made him feel like the next long-term face of All Blacks backline brilliance. But rugby, as brutal as it is beautiful, has a way of testing even the brightest stars. In early 2016, just months after lifting the Webb Ellis Cup, Milner-Skudder suffered a serious shoulder injury. It was supposed to be a temporary setback. After all, he was young, fit, and incredibly talented. The expectation was clear: rehab, recover, and return to terrorizing defenses in no time. But that shoulder injury was only the beginning of a nightmare that would stretch across years. One injury turned into many: shoulder, ankle, knee. His body betrayed him time and time again. Each recovery sparked hope. Each return reignited belief, but nothing stuck. The comebacks were short-lived, interrupted by yet another cruel twist of fate. The sidestep that once embarrassed defenders now felt fragile. Fans, teammates, and coaches rooted for him. But the game was evolving fast, and Nehe was stuck in a loop of recovery, rehab, and heartbreak. By 2019, the writing was on the wall. The All Blacks were preparing for another Rugby World Cup run, but Milner-Skudder's name was no longer in the conversation. New stars had emerged, new systems had taken shape. While he battled through pain and persistence, the game moved forward without him. It wasn't just the physical setbacks, it was the erosion of confidence, the mental toll of climbing the mountain over and over, only to fall before reaching the summit. Some critics said his body wasn't built for test-level rugby. Others whispered that his mindset had taken a hit. Whatever the reason, he was left out of the 2019 World Cup squad. A gut-wrenching omission for a player who had once been the golden boy of the black jersey. In that same year, Milner-Skudder signed a lucrative deal with Toulon, one of France's elite clubs. The move was seen as a reset, a way to escape the pressure of New Zealand rugby, secure his financial future, and rebuild his game away from the spotlight. For a moment, it looked like the perfect opportunity, a change of pace, a new environment, and a second wind, but the injury curse followed him to France. He barely played a minute in a Toulon jersey. His time there was consumed by medical reports, rehab routines, and mounting mounting frustration. A fresh start turned into another silent struggle. Eventually, he left the club quietly, with little fanfare and even fewer answers. For a player who had once set stadiums alight, the silence was deafening. Still undeterred, Milner-Skudder returned to New Zealand in 2021. His passion for the game never wavered. He linked up with the Highlanders, then later rejoined the Hurricanes. He also played in the NPC for Manawatu and Ngati Porou East Coast, teams steeped in local pride and cultural connection. And for brief moments, the magic returned. The sidestep still flashed. The balance was still there. But it wasn't enough. New Zealand's wing pool had evolved. Players like Will Jordan and Sevu Reece had emerged, younger and injury-free. They brought power, pace, and precision. Everything the modern game demanded. Milner-Skudder couldn't reclaim his spot, not because he wasn't talented, but because time had taken its toll. In total, Milner-Skudder played just 13 test matches for the All Blacks, but he scored 12 tries. That's nearly a try per game, an extraordinary strike rate for a winger. His tackle success rate stood at 92%, a testament to his all-around rugby intelligence. In Super Rugby, he played 35 games and scored 12 tries. Solid numbers when you consider how many seasons were lost to injury. But more than numbers, it was the feeling. The eye test. Watch one Milner-Skudder highlight reel and you're hooked. That step, that movement, that ability to create space where none existed, it was pure artistry. He didn't just beat defenders, he humiliated them. He made people fall in love with the game again. For many fans, he was the most exciting player of the 2015 World Cup, not because of stats, but because of how he made you feel. Milner-Skudder is the ultimate what-if player. What if he stayed healthy? What if he had played in 2019? What if we had seen him at full speed alongside Will Jordan and Caleb Clark? These questions will never be answered, but they will never stop being asked. That's how you know a player mattered. That's how you know he left something behind. He may not have the longevity of Jonah Lomu, the consistency of Doug Howlett, or the finishing instincts of Joe Rokochoko, but what he had was magic. Raw, untouchable magic. He had grace in a game of collisions. He had rhythm in a sport of chaos. And when he was at his best, rugby felt different. Off the field, Nehe Milner-Skudder has always been grounded, deeply connected to his Maori roots. He has consistently spoken about the importance of family, faith, and community. Even as fame came knocking, he remained humble, approachable, and real. In 2022, he joined the New Zealand Rugby Players Association as a representative, focusing on player welfare and life after rugby. It's a role he was born to fill. Quiet leadership, but immense impact. His career might not have gone the way fans hoped. The peaks were too short, the setbacks too frequent, but his story is not one of failure, it's one of resilience. He reached the top, he was pulled down by injuries, circumstances beyond his control, but he kept chasing, kept believing, and that in itself is a legacy. Nehe Milner-Skudder may never be called the greatest all-black winger, but he will always be remembered as the one who made you sit up, smile, and say, "Did you see that?" He didn't need 80 caps or world records. He just needed one run, one step, one moment, and he changed the game. He danced through defenders and into the hearts of fans around the world. And even now, long after his final test match, you'll still see his highlights pop up online. Young players still study his moves, coaches still talk about his vision, and fans, they still remember, because true brilliance doesn't need to last forever. It just needs to happen once, in a way the world can't forget.